Hey guys, so a couple things about scoring the personal project. So first off, if you're not sure where to look, go into ManageBlock. For the class of 2016, you should be able to find the files, and you have different examples of personal project reports here to score. There's some other information here too that you might find helpful, like a bibliography versus works cited, stuff about process journal, whatnot, but the important thing as far as scoring goes is this rubric right here, which you can see here. So when you're scoring the rubric, you have four categories: the investigation, the planning, the taking action, and the reflecting. Important thing to note, when you're scoring personal project, you're only scoring the report. Yes, it is personal project, and it is about doing something, creating something, getting involved in something. But where you show your learning, where you show your work, where you show what you got out of it is done through the report itself. So only the report is scored. If your project is amazing and you don't do a report, you get a very, very low score because almost none of these can be assessed without the report. In fact, without the report, you only get a 1 out of a total of 32 possible total points. So it's very important that you're focusing on the report and you're making sure that the report accurately shows what you did and shows your planning and your investigation and all of those things, because we cannot look at the project to score you for personal project. Now each one of these is a different criterion. So criterion A, B, C, D: investigating, planning, taking action, reflecting. And the way that you start with this is, as you're looking at the report, you start at the top and you move down. So the very first one, for investigating, as you're looking through the report, can you tell from the report that they have done all of these things? And it's not can you guess that they did these things, it's can you actually tell that they really did them. Not you think you did them, but did they actually do them? Is the evidence there? If it is, then you move down to the next one. And then you decide, can you tell from the evidence in their report, have they done all of this? Once again, you're not guessing, you're not supposing, you're not assuming. Either it shows proof that they did it, or it doesn't. And even if you think they did, if they didn't show evidence, you can't give them those points. So it's important that you understand that, both when you're scoring someone else's, but also when you're doing your own as well. That's kind of the point of this, is that you understand how this works, hopefully before you do yours, so hopefully you get the score that you want. And you do that for each category. So you move down the list, and first, do they have evidence that they met all of these things? And then if so, then you move to the next one. And if they didn't meet all of these, then you go back up to the top one. Now, whether it's a 1 or a 2 depends on how well you think they met these. If they just barely met these, then probably a 1. However, if they did a really good job meeting these, but they're just not quite here, then it'd be a 2. And the same thing goes for each category. So 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So did they just barely meet the requirements here? Or do they really do a good job of meeting them? They're just not quite at the next level. Now, once you score all of these, so let's say maybe they did a lot of investigating, and maybe they scored like a 5 because they did a really great job at investigating. It looks like they did some planning, like you believe they did some planning, but the evidence isn't there, so maybe they only scored like a 1. You can just barely tell, there's barely any evidence. You wish you could give them more, but you can't because there's not the evidence. Maybe this is a 1. Maybe this is a 2 because it was okay, but not, not great as far as evidence goes. And maybe the reflecting was kind of shallow and didn't really show what they, didn't really show what they got out of it. So maybe that's a 2. So, like a 5, a 1, a 4, and a 2. You would take those scores, so 5, 1, 4, 2. I think that's what I said. 5, 2, 4, 1, whatever. You write them down here. So 5, 2, 4, 1. You add them up, so that would be 7, 11, 12. I think those were the numbers that I said total. So that would be 12 total. 12 would fit under the 10 to 14 boundary down here. So that means that their score would be a 3 for the personal project IB grade. And a 3 is all right. A 3 is fine. A 3 is saying that you did a decent job and you met sort of the baseline expectations. Not amazing, but not terrible. You put forth some work. It could have been better, but you know, it's all right. It's considered acceptable. Obviously, you want to aim higher. You want like a 4 or a 5, and it'd be great to get a 6 or a 7. However, don't think that just because a student doesn't get a 6 or 7 that they did a bad job. When you're going through this, a lot of people are probably going to be in the 3-4 range. And we had a lot of reports this year that were actually in the 1 to 2 range because they did not show evidence of their work. We do have some that are higher. We have some that are in the 5, 6 here and there, and we even have a couple that sometimes they hit a 7 or an 8. But this is really rare down here. This is like, it's perfect. Like, it couldn't be better. There is no possible way that they could have really made it better. Anything else would have just been extra. Like, this 7, 8 down here is flawless. There are no errors. It's perfect. Everything that you hope that you would see there is there. It's amazing. So 3, 4 is fine. And 5, 6 is good. So don't think, don't look at it and saying like, ooh, I'm scoring this report really harshly. Why is everything that I'm doing maybe in the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 range? Shouldn't I be having some down here? And if it's a really amazing report, maybe. But don't feel like you need to score it higher just because you think you're scoring too low. If the evidence isn't there, then it's not there. And that's something important for you to understand as you're starting to work on your own, because you want to make sure that you're scoring where you need to, and you need to understand how this works to do that. Now, another thing to mention, there are a couple things that can set you back automatically on these scores. If a student has a 4, but they didn't do a bibliography, it automatically gets rolled back a point, so automatically gets rolled back to a 3. If they don't have a bibliography, it's probably not going to be a 4 anyways, because it's going to be hard to show good evidence of investigation if there's no bibliography. But regardless, if they got a 4 for some reason, authentically, and they don't have bibliography, it gets rolled back a point. You also have on our Westchester Personal Project page, so that's IB Program, Middle Years, Personal Projects. At the bottom, you have some files that you can look at. One of them is called Personal Project New Report Formats, and that will open this. This shows the different formats that you can do it in. So it can be written, which is what most students choose to do. It could be an electronic written report, which could be done in different ways. It could be oral, like a podcast or like an MP3 recording. It could also be film. It could be visual. Now, there are different requirements depending on which one you do. So written is 1,500 to 3,500 words. Same thing for electronic. Oral and video is 13 to 15 minutes or 13 to 15 minutes. However, you can also mix and match. So you could do some video or audio with some written. And if so, then you mix. So if you choose to do 6 minutes of video report, then you still need 900 to 2,100 words. This is important for 2 reasons. 1, it's important because you need to know this. But 2, it's also important because if you don't hit these requirements, let's say you have a 5-minute and 50-second video and a 1,100 word limit paper, you didn't meet this requirement. And so what happens then is you automatically lose a point on the rubric as well. So if you would have scored a 4, but your video was 10 seconds short, that's just how it is, and you're going to move back on your total personal project IB grade. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. I specifically said 1,100 words because 1,100 words is underneath this 1,200 word count. So if you had done 1,200 words and a 5.5-minute video, that would still be okay because you would meet these requirements, the 3 minutes and the 1,200 word limit. So that's something to be aware of. And we did have some students this year who didn't meet the requirements because they just missed it by 50 or so words, or they missed it by as little as 10 seconds. So you need to make sure that you're aware of that. Okay, so if you want, you can score directly on the computer. You can download this as a PDF, and you can draw directly on it in Photoshop to score, or one of the other programs on your machine. Or you could also use a hard copy if you want. I have printed some hard copies for you already that you can score that way if you prefer to score on paper while you're looking at the report.